Is it finally going to let me go live? I think so. Here we are. Are we live? I have the worst luck with this stuff. But looks like everything's going. Everything's cool. I hope I didn't let people sit there too long going, where the hell is it? Here it is. And how's it going? All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the first night of Apocalypse Hump Day. And I'm going to try doing this every Wednesday evening about the same time. If I get my shit figured out. I will be reading one of my short stories regarding the apocalypse. Be it zombie, alien invasion, whatever. I can't even remember all my stories that I've gotten. But for tonight, I'm going to be reading a story from my book, Nyctophobia. And I think it was the second horror anthology I put out there. And the name of the story is called Running Alone. It's a very first story I ever wrote, actually. My first serious story. I wrote a lot of stories when I was younger. But I wrote this one when I was about 14 and ended up rewriting it a few times as time went on. And I added some details, took out some stuff, and tried to make it a little more, a little meatier, I guess. And then when I published Nyctophobia, I rewrote it again and reworked it to its final completion. So yeah, we're gonna be doing this, and let's get right into it. If you're here now for the live read, welcome. I know it's Thanksgiving Eve and the busiest night for all the bars out there. So if you're out there and you're having a few libations with your friends, please be careful, be smart, Uber back home, do whatever. Yeah, just be safe. Make it home for Thanksgiving, because your family and your friends want to hang out with you. Anyways, we'll talk about Thanksgiving after I get done reading here. Tonight's read, Running Alone. Let's get it on. The Minnesota wind stung his face with a merciless vengeance, almost feeling like nature was sandblasting his skin from his skull. He had made it as far as Truman, which was a good 60-plus miles from his hometown of St. Peter. He did most of the trip on foot, as his car gave out just on the other side of Mankato. But he knew it wouldn't take long for it to come. It wasn't going to let him get far. It wasn't personal. It was just what it did. He made his way to the dilapidated barn, checking to see if there were lights on at the adjoining farmhouse. It was quiet, and he thought maybe it had already made its way here, but he was tired and needed a place in from the rain. The straw was old and moldy, dust so thick it threatened to choke him out. It filled his lungs. He quietly coughed to himself and made a nest from the old moldy straw. As he drifted into a nightmarish sleep, he thought about that first night. He was a bartender at the O'Gara's Pub and Grill. It was a small town pub that sat back away from the main drag. Not many college kids, mostly locals. Tonight, his regulars sat around their assigned seats, drinking the same drinks, bitching about the same ills that have been bugging them since he began slinging spirits 6 years ago. 2 seats sat empty at the center of the bar. Usually, those bar stools were filled by a Vernon Henderson and Larry Winthrop. There was something that made Kyle feel uneasy about his two biggest ass pains being absent tonight. They were both single men. They worked as welders at Gephardt's from 9 in the morning to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And every single one of those days, they would be sitting in those seats by 5:30 p.m. and wouldn't leave them until Kyle kicked them out at 1:30 a.m. It was Thursday. "Hey, Kyle," Tommy Gaylord spoke up. "Hey, man, can you turn up the TV? Maybe sling me another Whiskey 7 while you're at it?" Kyle turned down the stereo and turned up the television and began pouring Tommy another drink, his fifth. "Location lost is sporadic, which may have to do with the storm front that seems to have engulfed the northern part of the state." Channel 11 Weather had a map of the state that had its northern half covered in what looked like a storm front. "Some of the glitches you see on the screen is interference that we've been trying to clear up. The storm seems to be affecting our satellite feed." The satellite signal to the Twin Cities did seem to be fading in and out most of the day, and tonight it was getting worse. "We've sent out Jeff Hector out on location near Osakis," the weatherman continued. "Jeff, how do things look up north?" The feed was black. It also made Kyle feel uneasy because the static that came through the news feed sounded like 1,000 whispering voices. "Well, we'll get back to Jeff when we can clear up the signal. In other news, a large number of animals, both wild and domesticated, have turned up dead across the state. The DNR have been investigating the phenomenon since it started a few weeks ago." The television picture became drenched in rainbow colors and then went to static. Kyle didn't want to hear that whispering anymore, and he shut the television off. "What the hell was that?" Tommy said, laying cash down for his drink. "The joys of satellite television, Tommy," Kyle said, and turned the stereo back up. "You notice there's been a lot of dead animals lately?" "The usual roadkill. 169 runs right through the center of town. We're likely to get a lot of dead animals from the road." "Squirrels," Nick Montgomery said. "I usually get 500,000 squirrels eaten up and wrecking my bird feeders. But I've been finding nothing but dead carcasses in my yard. At first I thought it was one of the neighbor kids picking them off with their pellet guns. But the damn varmints, they look like they've been dead for weeks. Strangest thing." "I lost Poncho," Ellie spoke up. "She hadn't come home for a few days. Then, when I was raking leaves yesterday, there she was. Just a husk of a body. Like she'd been dead for a long time." "Okay, guys," Kyle said, wiping down the bar. "You guys are getting all X-Files on me. You think aliens are mutilating our animals?" After he said that, he thought about his own dog, a German Shepherd that went by the name of Daisy. When the clock hit 1:30 a.m. and the last of his customers staggered out the door, Kyle locked the door and then clicked on the television again. Nothing but static. He clicked through the channels and he only got loss of signal message on each channel. He counted out the register and locked up. He made his night deposit at Wells Fargo and decided to drive his Gran Torino by Vernon's house. Vernon lived up in the Bluffs. It was a 2-story that he had shared with Larry. It sat on 6 acres deep in the woods that overlooked the river. He pulled down the long gravel driveway and around their machine shed, where they welded on occasion for some side work. Both their cars were in front of the house. The house stood dark with only the light above the kitchen sink on. He left the car running and walked up to the door and gave it a couple knocks. Larry and Vern had several dogs, 7 at last count, but none of them barked, and he couldn't see any lurking in the dooryard. "Hey, Vern!" Kyle shouted. "Larry! You guys up? You guys okay?" There was no answer from the darkness inside. He walked around and peered in a few windows that graced the main floor. The dining room table was set with a decent-sized meal for two single men who usually drank their nutrients. There was a low grumbling roar coming from the clouds above. He looked up to a starless sky and shivered a bit. He walked around to the back of the house and found the bodies of 6 dogs of various pedigrees. They looked as if they had been dead for months. Some were merely skeletons with skin and fur stretched over them. More rumbling above, but this time he thought he heard voices, like 1,000 whispering voices like the static he heard on the television. He felt his hair stand up on the back of his neck, and he hurried to his car. He pulled off in a hurry, spraying gravel behind him. Kyle pulled into the Nicollet County Sheriff's Department. He spoke to one of the sergeants on duty. "If you could just do a welfare check on them," Kyle asked. "It looks like they're home, but no one answered the door. Found their dogs dead in the back." "Kid," Deputy Wyndham said, "I can have someone check tomorrow. We've got our hands full with other disappearances and dead animals. Farmers all over the county are losing their farm animals. I'm sure your friends will show up. A couple of town drunks getting lost in the woods while on a bender is nothing new." Kyle was going to argue with him, but decided the cop had other problems. He'd wait it out and check back later. His alarm never went off the next morning. He looked at his phone and it was blank and would not turn on. He shook it several times and then checked the charger plugged into the wall. Power outage. Great, he thought. It's going to be one of those days. He sat up and rubbed his eyes and tried to focus in the dark of his bedroom. Daisy sat next to his bed, panting as if she were hot. "What's the matter, girl?" he asked her, and she responded with a heavy paw on his arm. He stood up, slipped on his flip-flops, and walked to the window. He pulled the blinds and felt disoriented as it was still night out. "What the fuck?" he said to himself. Daisy whined and made her way anxiously to the door. "Hang on, Daisy." He shoveled his way to the bathroom to take a leak. He pulled his wristwatch off the medicine cabinet and looked at the time. 9:48 a.m. "Must be really cloudy outside, huh?" he asked his dog, who only whined more and scratched at the door. Grabbing his sweatshirt, he unlocked the door to a small one-bedroom house nestled by the river and walked uneasily outside with Daisy. She took a leak herself with her nose working up in the air. He looked up himself and felt panic, seeing the sky filled with what looked like black smoke, as if a volcano had erupted. "What do you smell, girl?" he asked. Having finished her duty, she kicked dead leaves over her mess and began barking at the sky. "Okay, that's enough." But she kept at it, yapping over and over at something in the air. It was beginning to hurt his ears. "Daisy!" He grabbed the scruff of her neck. "Enough, I said!" A loud crack came from the sky and then echoed off the bluffs, sending Daisy whining to his side. "What's the matter?" he asked, and then turned towards the house. "Come on, let's go back in." She wouldn't budge. She sat next to him, growling at some invisible foe. "Fine, bark at the sky all you want. I'm going inside." She followed him to the door, but sat on the porch and yipped at the sky. He scrubbed his teeth and then put on some socks and shoes. He decided to head over to St. James Lutheran Church. He was sure his dad would be there working on his upcoming Sunday sermon. Tying the last lace of his sneakers, he opened the front door and saw Daisy lying on her side, breathing heavily. "Daisy?" he said, kneeling next to her. "What's the matter, girl?" She let out a long, labored gasp, and her body caved in, releasing a thin wisp of black smoke from her mouth that spiraled upward to join the rest of the blackness in the sky. "Jesus, Daisy!" He began to cry. His dog lay there looking like she had died weeks ago. He picked her up and laid her on the front porch. He got into the car and drove off to his father's church. Littered along the streets were hundreds of bird carcasses: crows, ducks, geese, sparrows, robins, and finches. It made his stomach churn to hear the crunching beneath his tires. "The fuck is happening?" he asked himself. The church parking lot was empty. Normally, Jenny Clearlake's Mazda would be parked there. She was a Lakota woman who had been the church secretary long before his dad had taken over as pastor. She was so punctual you could set a watch to her. He walked up the steps, but the front doors were locked. He went around to the side door, and that was also locked. On the other side of the lot was the parsonage where his parents lived. He looked back at the church, and a loud crack echoed out of the depths of those black clouds again. He sprinted across the parking lot to his parents' house, and the door was locked. He pulled the keys out of his pocket and found his copy of his dad's house key. Opening the door, he yelled for his parents. There was no answer. The wind picked up outside, and he noticed broken glass on the floor all around him. The windows had been blown out sometime in the night. "Mom!" he shouted. "Dad!" He looked all over the main floor and then made his way upstairs to their bedroom. He got to the top of the steps and called for them one more time. He was answered by the heavy winds and the loud thunder. He opened their bedroom door. Both his parents were upright in bed, naked and staring opposite of each other. "Mom?" he asked in an unsteady tone. "Dad, are you guys okay?" He approached his mother slowly, picking up the covers, which were lying on the floor. He was going to cover his mother's nakedness when he noticed in the dim light that their eyes were black pools of glass. "Kyle," his father spoke in a monotone voice, but it wasn't just his voice. It was mixed with a chorus of 1,000 others, making him jump nonetheless. "My son, your mother belongs to me now, as does your father, and soon, you." "What are you?" Kyle backed off from his mother. "Don't fight it, son," his mother said in that same flat tone as his father. "We can all be together. Just let it happen." His mother pounced on him, catching him off guard and knocking him to the ground. Without any emotion, she pinned him down with her knees and pried open his mouth. "He is ready," she said, staring straight ahead. "He's ready to join us." "Mom!" Kyle screamed. "Get the fuck off me!" She was a heavy-set woman, but the thought of his mother's naked body atop his, and the strange and horrifying situation that was happening before him, pumped him full of adrenaline. He was able to get his right arm free, and as he struggled to get the rest of himself free, his father stood above him, grabbing his free arm. "Dad, please fight this. Where's your faith? Why are you doing this?" His father laughed. "Silly boy, faith has nothing to do with me. I am a simple entity, hungry for the essence you humans carry within you." He opened their bedroom. Pastor Henry Scott knelt at his son's head while his wife of 27 years pried open Kyle's mouth. As his father bent down, opening his own mouth towards his son, Kyle felt his life draining from him. Gagging and tearing up, he saw a new blackness in the already dark room. Then, in one fleeting moment, clarity returned to him. The dimness became lighter, and when his focus came back, his father fell to the floor. Before he knew what was happening, he heard a loud crack, and then his mother fell to the right of him. Someone grabbed him from behind and struggled with lifting him to his feet. Who the fuck? He uttered, looking behind him. Easy, Jenny Clearlake spoke to him. We must return to the chapel immediately. Jenny, my God, what's happening? What happened to my parents? Something that cannot be undone, but we must get back to the chapel. It is not safe here. They both ran down the steps and into the chapel, locking the doors behind them. Jenny had a bundle of sage smoldering on the altar of his father's church. She grabbed it and began smudging the area around Kyle. The scent made his lungs tight, but he let her finish. She then ran to the entrance of the worship center and smudged that as well, and left a trail of sea salt she had in a leather medicine bag across the entryway. Please, Jenny, he asked, tell me what's happening. What's wrong with my parents? What's happening out there? Something evil has escaped the great abyss, she said solemnly. It is ancient and claiming the land that it once ruled. I don't understand. You can't. You were raised on your father's god, the white man's legends. But my grandfather was one of the great elders who passed on the ancient tales to me. But that thing, it spoke through my dad's voice and said that faith has nothing to do with it. The Christian Bible, your Bible, tells tales of the ancient spirits and demons of the Hebrews and the Hebrew lands. This land, my people's land, we had our own spirits and demons, our own legends that we battled when mankind was young. Kyle tried to grasp what she was saying. Above, thunder clapped in the sky, sounding like a large sledgehammer being pounded on the roof. What are we going to do? He asked. What can we do? Jenny continued to smudge around the altar. I'm afraid I don't know. What? I was taught to heal people spiritually, physically, emotionally, even to protect against negative energies. But this is far bigger than anything I am prepared to handle. Thunder smashed the glass and busted open the doors of the sanctuary. The black cloud filled the borders of the entryway while Jenny grabbed Kyle's arm and led him to the altar. Hold fast to your beliefs, young man, whatever they are, she said to him. She reached into her medicine bag and tossed out a powder at the blackness. Little flashes of lightning erupted inside the mass. She held out her sage smudge stick, fanning the thick smoke with a large decorated eagle feather. You are not welcome here, Ancient One. We are protected by the white light. We are protected by our ancestors. A wisp of black cloud shot out like a tendril and snuffed out the burning sage. Jenny snapped her hand back and began smoldering with frost. Your petty magics will not work on me, it hissed in that horrid hollow chorus. Your ancestors fed me. You will feed me. I will take what is mine. Jenny grabbed her medicine bag and threw the entire satchel into the cloud. The flashes of lightning were brighter, and it seemed to corrupt the blackness. It began to dissipate and retreat back outside. Jenny collapsed to her knees. I think you did it, Kyle said, rushing to her side. Are you okay? Jenny sounded exhausted. We should leave here. I don't think I will survive another attack like that. He helped her up, and they made their way to the entrance. He stopped dead in his tracks when he heard the whispering again, surrounding him on either side. Jenny, he spoke softly, can you hear that? She didn't answer. Blackness spilled back into the sanctuary, this time slithering around Jenny. Kyle snapped his arm back as a shadowy mist began to freeze his arm and numb it. Jenny! He yelled to her. Kyle, she whimpered. Kyle, save me! The blackness engulfed her, and she disappeared in the obsidian fog. He ran to the altar and grabbed the large iron cross that sat atop the wooden altar and held it in front of him. Oh, you are such a funny man, child, it teased. Do you think your objects are going to help you? Another black wisp of cloud wrapped around the metal cross. Kyle felt the intense cold running down the handle. He used as much will as he could to hold on to it, but his hands went numb and it began to feel like a white-hot burn. He released the crucifix, leaving layers of skin on it. The black tendrils held it in the air above him and then crushed it into a perfect sphere. Oh, shit, he cussed. The sphere flew through the air towards him, and he dived to the side as it smashed through the raised altar. Splinters of wood stabbed into his side as he screamed out. Enough playing around, Kyle. There was impatience in its voice. Come to me. Come to me now so that I may devour you. Leave, Kyle screamed. This cannot be real. Just leave me alone. The black tendril coiled around his ankle and dragged him closer. He protested, but the coldness of its touch began to sap the fight out of him. So delicious. Not as delectable as your father, but delightful just the same. No! Kyle grabbed a hold of a pew and held steadfast. No! I will not go! The cold ate into his ankle and ran up his leg to his groin. He reached into the pew and caught hold of a copy of the Bible and threw it into the dark. A large blue light exploded inside it, and it released him. Pins and needles ran up and down his legs as he tried to stand. My faith may not kill you, he spat, but it can hurt you. The inky darkness boiled at the entrance. Loud thunder echoed from its depths into the large chapel. Then it simply sucked itself out of the church and into the air, leaving 3 naked figures standing in the entryway. It was his parents and Jenny. A faint gray mist danced around their bodies. Their eyes were black as mirrors. My son, the dad thing spoke. Stop! Kyle grabbed a candelabra from the aisle. A setup for a wedding this Saturday. I am not your son. You are no longer my father. The truth is a painful thing to grasp, Kyle. But we are all here as cattle. We always have been. Those are lies! Kyle swings a candelabra at Jenny, who is closest to him, and approaching fast. Your time is over! A low guttural laugh erupted from the depths of the ghastly trio. Your father is right, the Jenny thing spoke. Our ancestors were put here as food. It hibernates for millions of years and awakens to feed. It is a natural cycle. It only seems unnatural because it doesn't happen often. Join us, his mother added. It is inevitable. It was his father who tried to grab at him first. With heavy regret on his heart, he swung the candelabra and connected with his father's head, bringing the good pastor to the ground. Kyle brought the long metal rod back to crash it into what used to be his father's face, and then Jenny tackled him down and climbed upon him. Get off me, he yelled. I will not join you. She pried his mouth open and lowered her face to his. Feeling his life being sucked out of him again, he pulled a long sliver that was embedded into his waist and jabbed it deep into Jenny's eye. It popped in a thick black goo that spattered his face. He threw her off as he stood up. His mother came from behind him and bit down into the wound where the splintered wood was in his waist and began sucking away at it. "God damn it!" he screamed and tried to elbow her in the face. "Get the fuck off me!" But she only continued to feed greedily at him. He grabbed his mother's face and dug it into her eye sockets with his thumbs. More of the same black ichor splattered his grimacing face, and she let go and dropped to the floor. He stumbled out of the front of the church and made his way to his car. Screams could be heard from all over St. Peter. Police sirens wailed and then would die. Ambulance and other emergency vehicles would rise and die in the distance. He made his way to 169, which ran through the center of town, following the river. He decided to head south. The news reports had said it was coming from the north, so his only choice was south. The drive between St. Peter and Mankato is one of the most beautiful scenic rides one can take at any time of the year in Minnesota. But today, it was pitch black. Not even with his headlights on high could he penetrate the darkness. The only thing he could see was dead bodies of people and animals strewn about the roads and sidewalks. Hanging out of their broken down cars were husks of what was once human. "This is silly, Kyle," it spoke through his radio. "You cannot run from your destiny." He shut the radio off. Then his car began to sputter and then shut off. It drifted to the bottom of the hill, coasting into the lot of a Happy Chef parking lot. "Son of a bitch," Kyle spat as he pounded on the steering wheel. When the car came to a stop, he got out and looked around. He would glance nervously up at the sky as distant thunder clapped in the distance off to the north. He awoke in the moldy straw. He could feel eyes looking at him. He scanned the darkness and saw a dark figure standing several feet away from him. He backed slowly away from it. "You move one more inch, boy, and I'll put 2 holes in you with both barrels," spoke the man in the shadows. "You're alive?" Kyle said, putting his trembling hands in the air. "Of course I'm alive," the man said. "You on drugs?" No, I'm sorry. I just needed shelter from the rain. I don't mean any harm." "You're lucky it was me and not my missus. She spooks easy." The man laughs, and it is an old man's laugh. Kyle only nervously chuckles and then lowers his hands slowly. "I'd turn on the lights on the barn, but the power went out this morning. That damn storm coming out of the north. Weirdest thing is, it even drained all the damn batteries around here, too." "It's not the storm." "Solar flare type thing, you think?" "No." "Well, in any case, my name's Elmer Newport. You're welcome to come in and get warm. Got the wood stove going, and I can have Betty put some coffee on." "Kyle," he said as he put out his hand. "Don't be scared, young man. I ain't gonna shoot ya," Elmer said, pumping Kyle's hand. Elmer led him to the house. Thunder crashed above them, and Kyle almost urinated himself. "Man, you're jumpy," Elmer commented. "Where did you say you were from?" "I didn't," Kyle answered nervously, "but I'm from St. Peter." "You walked all this way?" "From Mankato, yes." Elmer shook his head and opened the front door for him. Kyle stepped in, and the old farmer came in behind him. "Betty!" Elmer hollered. "Betty, I've brought in a guest. Got some coffee on?" Coffee. "How nice," she said from the other room. "Invite him in. Invite him in." Kyle stopped dead in his tracks. He thought he had heard several voices within the old lady's voice. "The hell is wrong with you, Kyle?" Elmer asked. "Come on in." I can't. Betty, can you come out here and give me a hand?" "No, please, we must get out. Kyle grabbed his arm. We have to go. That's not your wife. Not my... You better leave, buddy. Elmer's face got grim. I ain't harboring no weirdos. You from that mental institution in St. Peter? That where you from? Seriously, sir, you need to go. We both need to go. Elmer raised his double barrels at Kyle and cocked the hammers back. You better get out of my home right now. Right fucking now, boy. I ain't kidding. Betty, you stay in the kitchen. But Betty had other plans. She came out into the mudroom from behind Elmer, her eyes black as shiny coal. Lighten up, Elmer, she said with 1,000 whispering voices, and give Mama a kiss. To Kyle's horror, or more likely Elmer's as well, Betty pushed her husband against the wall and pressed her lips to his. The shotgun went off and blew 2 holes in the door behind Kyle. There were sucking sounds, and then Elmer began to gag, as if his breath was being sucked from his lungs. His arms flailed as his life left him, and he eventually just curled into an empty heap. Kyle had grabbed a hold of the shotgun. He was pointing it at Betty, repeatedly pulling the trigger. It only clicked and clicked, with both barrels already empty. Relax, Kyle, the Betty thing said, wiping her mouth. I've decided not to eat you. You want to live out your self-righteous existence while the rest of your kind gets fed upon. So be it. I don't believe you, Kyle said, backing towards the door. There are billions of souls on this planet, Kyle. Not eating you is not going to disturb me. I've decided it would be more delectable to let you live through this. Live through the near extinction of your race. Near extinction? It wouldn't be very prudent of me to wipe out my food supply. I'll have to leave some of you around after I hibernate. Repopulate the food supply. It will be interesting to see what you evolve into in a few million years. See what kind of religion you come up with. Someone will stop you. Someone will destroy you for good. I am eternal. You are a fool to think that this world, that this universe was made for you. It may not even be made for me. Maybe the next time I wake up, there will be something bigger around to digest me. I highly doubt that, but anything is possible. Anyways, enjoy your pardon food. I've got a world to feed on. Kyle stepped down off the front steps. He backed his way towards the barn and curled into the fetal position in his moldy straw nest. He put his thumb into his mouth and tried to find a happy place in his mind. The end. There you have it. That was Running Alone for our first night of Apocalypse Humpday. So anyways, folks, we will be doing this again next Wednesday. I think we're going to be reading from the same book. The next story that we will be reading is going to be called Lucifer's Parade. So yeah, so join me then next Wednesday. So that story actually came about from a nightmare I had, and it was one where I woke up in my dream, and my parents were like possessed, and all the windows were blown out of the house, and the sky was black, but everything was like colored red, and yeah, there was like this evil entity that was taking over the earth, and for some reason I was left behind. So yeah, that's kind of where that derived from. Also, it's got a little influence from the movie Prince of Darkness. Yeah, so if you haven't checked that movie out, that movie is really good. So, yes, telling scary stories since 1976. That's right. So, anyways, yeah, we'll be doing that next week. We'll be reading Lucifer's Parade from Nyctophobia, and we'll continue on this apocalyptic Wednesday. Let's see, Thanksgiving. Yes, I don't know what you folks are doing. If you guys are spending it with somebody or other people, some of you have big families. My family is scattered all over, so I'm going to be having dinner like I have been for the last few years with my friends Matthew and Wanda. They always gracefully let me come over and eat some really good food. Matthew and Wanda make a really good spread, so I'll be doing that, and I'll be missing my kids. They got their own Thanksgiving stuff going on. So yeah, have a great holiday, and we will see you guys on next week. Also, next Tuesday, I'm going to be dropping a tune for Tunes on Tuesday. Going to be right here. I don't know if it's going to be a live video or just a video I post, but what I will be asking is I'll be asking you guys to come up with songs for me to learn to play. So it'll be one song for the night, not a whole album or whatever, but just like one song for the night. And yeah, put it in the comments or whatever. Thanks everybody for subscribing. Thanks for hanging out and watching and listening. And don't forget to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. I'm up to 13 subscribers, which is awesome. I'll take anything. And thank you for liking this page as well and following me in this little journey I'm on. I guess I hate saying I'm on my journey because it just sounds really corny, and yeah. Anyhow, yeah, you guys have a great day tomorrow. Have a great night if you're out partying with your friends from Thanksgiving Eve. Please be safe and be responsible and make it home okay. All right? Love you guys. Peace. We are out.